Okay, hello, good morning. Welcome to this Q&A briefing for Charities regarding the Discovery Programme. I think it's now 11 o'clock, so we are going to begin the session. Okay. So firstly, welcome and thank you all for joining us today. Just as a bit of an introduction to how the session is going to run, we are going to do a quick 10-minute introduction to the Discovery Programme, followed by time for questions and answers. And I just wanted to thank you all for posting your questions ahead of time in the Google Doc. We've also got, we're also using Slido throughout this session. So I think one of my colleagues, David, will post very shortly in the chat on Zoom a link to the Slido. So if you have any questions at all during today's session, please do post your questions there. You'll also see that you can vote up. There's a little arrow symbol next to a question. So if somebody else has asked your question already and you want to, double click on that to make it go up the agenda, then do press those arrows. So as a first introduction, I just want to say, so hello, I'm Molly from the CAST team, and also on this call we have Debbie and David from CAST. Debbie will be facilitating some of the questions later on, and David's on hand to answer any issues you have. You can use the chat to message the hosts, but please do use Slido for any of the questions. We also have on this call all the charities, so you're in the room. Thank you so much for joining us today. And also involved in the Discovery Programme are some digital partners. So these are digital agencies who'll be working with us throughout the Discovery Programme to deliver the learning journey. So we're going to talk through in the introduction who the Discovery Programme is for, what it is, and finally, why should you apply? So I've just mentioned very briefly that this is a learning journey. And it's really aimed at charities and non-profits who are looking to improve their digital design and data innovation skills and capacity. So the Discovery Fund is for organisations who are at the early stage of their digital journey. Perhaps you are aware that you want to use digital more in how you deliver services or how you work as an organisation, but you haven't worked on a digital project before, or you haven't worked with a digital agency or partner before. It might be that you don't have in-house capacity or capabilities, and you're looking to build that capacity and capabilities. You do need to be incorporated. You need to work with communities in England. This is very much an England-specific fund. And we are asking that anybody applying for the Discovery Fund needs to be able to demonstrate how they will share their learning journey with up to 10 other non-profit organisations. So the two points here about being incorporated and the network. Being incorporated, we need to see for due diligence purposes one set of accounts with either Companies House or a charity commission. And in terms of the network, this is quite limited funding, and we're aware of just how severe the demand for funding is across the country. So we want people to be able to show how they're going to share their learning with a wider network and really maximise the value. We are, for this funding, particularly interested in applications from user-led organisations and organisations led by and for marginalised communities. And there's more information about the definitions of this on our website. And what is Discovery? So it's £5,000 of funding to attend a learning journey, participate in a learning journey that will help you to understand your user needs, develop a digital brief, and develop your skills and capacity as an organisation. It's important to note that you can work on any problem or challenge that your organisation is facing as a result of COVID-19. In terms of what you'll learn, we hope that through this learning journey, you will learn how to navigate the world of digital. So we really want you to become more confident in using digital in your work. You'll understand how to use digital design and data to improve your work. You'll learn how to manage digital projects. You'll learn how to work effectively with digital agencies and how to make the best use of existing tools and systems, and much more. The learning journey is going to be delivered online. So you're all here today. This is a really excellent use of digital for online learning. But unlike this, where I'm just talking to you, it will be very much a collaborative journey and learning by doing. So not only will you be learning from our digital partners and from CAST through this journey, you'll also be making real change, initiating real projects and doing work for your organisation at the same time. Here's a photo of what it looks like so you can get a bit of a sense of how people work together collaboratively online. And in terms of structure, again, this is on the website, but we are expecting it to be around 20 days with a learning journey that takes place between the 28th of September and the 19th of October. Following that, we've allowed time for something called playback, and this is really the point at which you're sharing your learning either with your organisation or with those organisations in the network. You'll be working together in cohorts. So the organisations that successfully apply for discovery will then be working together as a cohort. And once the learning journey is complete, there's an opportunity to apply for development. You might have seen the mention of development funding on the website. It's a second tranche of funding for developing a digital project. And this is what the structure looks like in reality. So your calendar will start to look like this. And playback at the end of the month. And then the applications for development for the second stage of development running from the 26th until the 2nd of November. In terms of what you'll achieve, you'll be scaling your capacity, building your innovation capabilities, designing great services, delivering better services online, and as I've already mentioned, the opportunity to pitch for development support. Okay, I'm going to hand over now to Debbie for questions.
Thank you, Molly. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Lots of people are adding questions to Slido, which is fantastic. It just means a challenge for us to keep up. But we hope we can answer most of your questions. We might not get to all of them, but we'll do our best. So thank you for keeping those coming. Molly, you will have to coordinate the slides, I'm afraid. If that's okay with you. If you could press next, that would be brilliant. So, big question that somebody posted straight on is, what do we mean by digital? And actually, it is a big question. And as Molly said, the solutions people will be working on will not all be digital. They might be design or data driven. But we've tried to capture it in the following little paragraph, that digital is not so much in how you deliver and what you deliver, but it's about how you your attitude towards digital and the confidence that you have in using digital tools. When we're saying digital, it doesn't mean that we're expecting everybody to design an app. Actually, it's about building a confidence in using tools and systems that are already there, reusing by building onto existing tools and systems, and not always building something from scratch. So this is what we understand with digitals. It's about building that confidence, having that curiosity and the confidence in using them. And that's exactly what Discovery will do in those 4 weeks with each organization. Molly, can we have the next slide? Thank you. So here's a few other questions people ask about the program. So how much of the 20 days would be spent on webinars or working with a digital partner and working internally on the project? It's a bit hard for us to know that at the moment, because we have invited digital agencies to submit their approach of how they would want to work with cohorts, and we're still that's still open at the moment. But roughly, we would expect that 1 to 2 days a week, and that might be broken up. We'll be working in groups or one-to-one with the digital agency, and then the other days you will work internally on a project. So that's why we've asked for you know, a full-time dedication to this discovery learning journey. That doesn't have to be by one person, that can be shared with persons and by teams, which just means I have to work a bit more flexible. But yeah, I think it's until we can anticipate 1 or 2 days a week to be working with the partner or in groups, and the rest we will do yourself internally. Will all contact sessions with the digital partners be a group session, or will they be individuals? Again, a lot of group work, because we feel that's part of the value of this program, is that you work together, you learn together, and that you can support each other. And you know, if you hadn't thought of a question, the other person might have, and that's beneficial. So it will be a bit of a mix in most cases, but again, we'll have to see how that how the proposals from the digital partners will be when they come through. But there's also always within your right to go when you're on the program, when you have applied successfully, to liaise with a digital partner if you feel you need a bit more time one-on-one because you're struggling with a certain element that you're working on, and I'm sure they'll be able to help you out with that. And often if somebody raises it, it's not just one organization struggling it, or one person, it's often shared. So it's really good to raise those things. The next question on this slide is the support more suited for any areas in particular? For example, the needs of service users, staff, volunteers, and the organization. So here at CAST and Catalyst, we really find it important that organizations really operate from their users' perspective and their needs. And with this innovation, it might be driven by your beneficiaries or users, it might be staff or volunteers, and that's who should drive this innovation, this change for you. In some cases, it goes across, and you'll be looking at the needs for all three, depending on what you're trying to do, what the challenges you're trying to overcome. As I said, we really expect the work that you'll be doing driven by the needs of the people you're trying to reach, or you want to affect by the change. Molly, can we have the next slide? Thank you. Are charities based in England who operate across the UK able to apply? Yes, they are, but the work has to be focused in England. So if you're successful in applying for this funding, the work needs to be focused on your network within England, on the communities you support within England. Post the funding, you might be able to roll out anything that you've designed further into your organisation, but whilst you're funded, you have to work in England. Will the 65 supported organisations be spread across England? And does geography play a factor in decision making? It is. We're hoping to have a good spread across England, and we want to make sure that we have projects of people participating, on organisations participating across England, but we'll have to see what comes through. And in the end, we will base our selection about working with the communities that are ring fenced from the list of 9, and organisations that are really driven by lived experience. Infrastructure organisations, do they have to be delivering support direct support to the groups listed, or is it sufficient that they are supporting the organisations who are? As long as the challenge is driven by the communities that are being supported through the organizations, then it's fine for infrastructure organizations to apply, but you really need to make your case that the challenge you're working on is a challenge your members or your organizations are trying to address to continue their support or to improve their support to their communities. Thank you, Molly. Can a single charity with a project specific to their organization apply and share these learning across the network? We do, to make, there isn't a lot of money. It seems a lot, but actually when you start looking at how can we have the biggest impact with this funding that we have, it isn't enough for the whole sector. So hence us asking that organizations organize themselves in networks from a minimum of 10 organizations. And when we say networks, we mean they can be formal, but it could be informal partnerships, as long as the partners in that partnerships are all formal organizations. So your network doesn't have to have a written agreement or a memorandum of understanding, but it might be that you're working with similar client group but quite spread, or it might be that you actually work quite in the same area with quite different people, but you're trying to tackle a similar problem. So as long as you can make a case of, and be clear of why your network and how you all benefit from this work, then you can do that. But you have to be part of a network. So as a single charity, you can't apply. You have to make sure beforehand that the work you'll be doing is relevant to that network of 10. So that might mean just having a check-in with all those organizations to say, if we work on this, if we lead on this work, can you benefit from it? And we'll make sure we share that learning with you. How do Catalysts ensure all 10 organizations in a network are involved? Well, actually, this is where we need the leading organization who makes the application take that responsibility, that they take responsibility in sharing that with the network. We appreciate it isn't practical for all 10 organizations to be involved heavily. That's why we ask one organization to make the application on behalf of the network and to lead this work for the network. But have a think about when you're talking to your partners in your network, how this learning will benefit everybody, how you will make sure that it does after you complete your discovery. So have that as part of your conversation at the start, how you will do that. And potentially you could have people not just from your organization, but also from another organization deliver on the program within your network. That's an arrangement you could make, but we need one organization from a network to apply. So I think, yes, I hope that's clear. Do your organizations, branches or chapters count as part of our network? So as long as we feel that your network, as long as each organization has their own governance and their own board, so they have to be independently governed. If you're a structure with lots of locations and lots of services, but you have your multiple teams, so to say, that deliver that, if you have one governance structure across, then you're not a network or the federated organization that we have made this one available to. So that would mean you'll still have to look for those other organizations to work with you. Thank you, Molly. I will go through the slides first and then look at the other questions that are coming through. Ooh, that were all the questions on the slides. So there's some questions in the chat here, and I also need to check if we have some more questions on Slido. Let me just check. So there's a question from Karen. He said she's unsure about discovery or development grant is most appropriate for the charity. What are the key differences? Great question, Karen. Thank you. So discovery is really if you're starting your journey, your digital innovation journey, and you're building skills so that you're not quite sure where to start. You know there's a challenge, but you don't not quite know how to address it. So that's where you would really benefit from discovery. If you're looking to understand your user needs better, to map your assets better, to scan what is already available that you could utilize, then this is a great program for you. If you've done that already and you've kind of pinpointed your challenge and you know the user needs and you have a potential solution that you want to develop, then development is better because you'll get to work one-to-one with a digital agency just to on that challenge again for per network. So with discovery is a cohort, and development you'll be more one-to-one. And there's a question from Peter. Can you explain a bit more about learning program at work if a national infrastructure body applies on behalf of its members? So yes, the learning will be mostly with that organization that participates and the people from that organization who participates, but we're hoping that learning will be shared, and you know that within your network you share some of the techniques you're using, maybe some of the tools that that are provided by the digital agencies, and during the duration and potentially the first couple of weeks or months post the learning journey, that you'll be able to support your network with any questions if they're doing their own journey with similar activities and maybe on a different challenge. So we're really hoping that organizations participate will carry forward the knowledge and the skills they gain with their network. And I'll go and have a look at Slido. I don't know if Molly or David want to come in. Just want to give them the opportunity because I've been talking a lot. Just wanted to check if they wanted to.
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, I was just going to speak to that question before last, and also I think there was another one about the differences between discovery and development. Someone mentioned about applying for discovery for a specific project that was really, unique to their organisation. I think one of the other differences between discovery and development is that at the discovery stage, you don't need to have a project. You can have a problem, but the idea is that you're going on that learning journey to learn and discover how to address that problem using digital. So you don't need to have a defined solution at this stage. It's really about working together to do the research that you need to do and do all the groundwork that you need to do to develop your solution to that challenge. Whereas for the development, you're a bit further on and you're expected to have already done that research and to be able to evidence the research that you've done, if that makes sense. Debbie, did you have anything to add to that or anything more from Slido?
There's some more questions on Slido that I'd like to go through. So I'll come back. So, sorry, there's quite a few questions. So I'll just make how do we evidence that we'll be able to share our journey with 10 other organizations? This is partly based on trust. We trust that you see this opportunity. It's not something just for your organization. As a sector, we're really hardly hit by COVID, and it's been a real challenge, and we want to make sure that this funding doesn't just support individual organizations, but the sector on a wider scale. So that's why we ask you to come in as a network and to share that learning and to make sure that the challenge the problem you're trying to address or trying to unpick, that's not something just you are wrestling with, but others as well, and that you look for those organizations where you can share that learning with. Is there an income limit for organizations applying as your annual income? There isn't, not in the, but we might Depending on how many applications we get through, we might prioritize organizations who have less of a financial buffer, because we wouldn't want organizations having millions and millions to be able to fund something themselves here. We really want to reach those organizations that are working with these communities that are hardest hit by coronavirus, and that would not otherwise have an opportunity to address some of the challenges they're facing.
I think just on that as well, there's a question when you go to apply about how COVID has impacted on your funding. So we're very much, this is looking for supporting organisations, and I'm sure you can probably turn around and say this is every organisation in the entire sector here, but organisations who've seen significant financial challenges because of COVID, and this is really about us supporting those organisations to make themselves more resilient and support the work that they're doing through that, if that helps.
Yeah. And then there's a really interesting question about if we could give an example about the progress that would be realistic, feasible, understanding what would be possible. One of the challenge for you from us is, you know, make your case of why this funding could help you and how it could help you. Recently, from a different funder, we've had organizations working on challenges around how to engage, how to bring on people on board remotely, how to engage with those who aren't online and make sure they still access services, how to make sure that services who are switching online are still accessible for those who might either who don't have the confidence or who might have limitations in accessing tech. And these are projects that are still going. So but these are the kind of challenges that you might be thinking of for discovering. You know there's a challenge because you had to stop services or you had to change your services, but you're not quite sure how to overcome these challenges, or where to start, because that is still very wide. You need to make you really need to dive into the nitty-gritty of that challenge to be able to create some potential solutions. Who are the digital partners we might work with? Well, there's quite a range. Potentially, we're hoping to encourage a great diversity of digital agencies to work. And we're also here looking for organizations who might be user-led. So we're looking for organizations who might have experience working with charities that potentially support people with disabilities, or older, mature residents, people living in England, or with children or with families, and hopefully as well people that maybe from their own life experience can relate. So we're asking them for that. We have a network of existing partners, but we're really encouraging as many partners that potentially are out there to make their case to us that they are suitable to help you during this delivery, discovery, learning journey.
I just want to add to that as well, Debbie. If you are here as a charity and you have worked with a digital partner in the past, and you've worked with a digital agency that you would highly recommend and you really want to work with them again, please do encourage them to apply. As Debbie's mentioned, we're currently recruiting those partners to bring on board, and we really want to hear from new organisations and organisations that are able to provide really strong case studies from the sector and demonstrate that they've done great work in the past with not-for-profit organisations. So do feel very free to share this fund with any digital agencies you have worked with and encourage them to apply through the AVEN projects. So yes, it should be quite exciting. You can also go to, there's something called Dovetail that is facilitated by Catalyst, which is a directory of digital agencies. It's might be quite useful to look there and see what agencies are within our network, our existing network, and if independent to this you were looking to commission digital work, then that's a great resource for charities.
Yeah. There's quite a few questions around do we have to do delivery? I hope we haven't been clear that you don't. If you have a problem and you've done your user research and you know kind of you really have a specific and well articulated problem area, problem challenge, then you can go directly and apply for development funding. Depending on your network and organizations, you might want to apply for both. However, if you within your network feel you could apply for both, then it might be a suggestion that a different organization takes a lead on applying to the other fund. Otherwise, you might take yourself a lot on at the same time. There will be an opportunity for organizations who are doing discovery, who are successful, to then go on to apply for more funding to do development after that. It's all very tight, and unfortunately, that's the timeframes are very tight. That's due to the timeframes from our funder. But there is a possibility, not for all organizations, but that we will reopen applications, especially for organizations who go through a discovery journey. There was also a question around state aid regulations. So, and that because yes, this funding is state aid. So we need to ensure that the charities are in receipt of support and services that are not in breach with the state aid rules. So we need to make sure that the price or your budget reflects actually what is reasonable and reflects the true cost of things, and that you don't squeeze the money. I mean, we're all squeezing money to get most out of it, but that you're realistic at what it would cost you, what the resources are needed to participate, and that you think about that in your budget, because we will look at that and make sure that your budgets are realistic and you're not underselling or overcharging. So to say, it's not charging, but yeah, you're not trying to the funding is ring fence for participation in this project and the cost related to that.
Yeah, I think just to clarify there, so the for Discovery, the £5,000 grant is to cover the cost of you participating in this programme and sharing that learning with your network and getting buy-in from senior stakeholders. So that is specifically what it's for, and then the development fund is for development costs, if that makes more sense.
Thank you, Molly, for making it even clearer. There's another question on Slido about the discovery. How digital can help inclusion in society for beneficiaries rather than better service offered via use of digital be suitable. I think it can be mixed, so it really depends on your challenge, I would say. It doesn't have to be either or. Just having another look. David, Molly, any other questions that you've seen that we haven't answered?
Debbie, some of these points have already been covered, but these questions received a couple of votes. So just to make sure we've got a democratic process here, there's a question that is asking whether or not really this support is more suited for needs of service users, staff, or the organisation. So organisations probably looking at both service user needs and organisational needs, and probably wanting to prioritise based on the criteria of this fund. So could we shed some light on that, Debbie?
Yeah, no, I'm really happy to talk about that a bit more. Thank you, David. Yeah, we understand the needs are across, but we want any innovation to be driven by the needs of the users, and that could be your service users, it could be the staff. If the staff if the challenge is for staff to deliver a service because it's now delivered remotely, and there is a challenge there about understanding and skills, or not knowing what to use, or how to if you were home visiting and you're doing this remote, how you might do that. So, but it will always have to go back to the needs of the users, and that's how you innovate. But most challenges are impacting on users and staff and the organization. When you're working on your challenge, the needs of your users, your beneficiaries, or your staff, your volunteers who deliver a service should come first before the organisation.
Thanks, Debbie. And then one more here with 2 votes. regarding the fact that we mentioned we would prioritize user-led organizations. If we're not a user-led organization, would you recommend we still apply?
Great question, and must admit a bit of a hard one to answer, because this is the first time we manage a fund, certainly of this scale, and we've managed smaller funding before, but this is a really big fund for us to manage, and we don't really know the response we'll get. We will prioritize applications from user-led organizations. There is no we won't be looking at it. There was another question about percentage of user-led, because there's a question in the application regarding the leadership and how if they are representative of the people that you're trying to support. There isn't a target or a minimum we're looking for. We'd just like to see that you're true to having user involvement and having that represented in your leadership team, as well as supporting the people in your communities. So, sorry, Molly, go.
Also just add to that, there's an eligibility checker, I think we call it, it's Debbie, what's that called on the website? Sorry. Anyway, there's an eligibility checker which makes sure that you're meeting the criteria for support. So do check your eligibility, and if you meet all those basic requirements, then as Debbie said, the user-led and the underrepresented groups, those are sort of additional requirements. So provided you're meeting the basic eligibility requirements, and please do apply, but do think about how you're going to involve users in the decision, in the process, in the learning journey, and in terms of sharing your learning. And there is a question, both of the application templates for discovery and development are now online. So there is you'll be able to have a look at that. And there is a question there about how you're going to be sharing the learnings with your network and how you're going to be involving users. So just do make sure that you're considering that throughout your application.
Yes, thank you, Molly. That's great. Any other questions, David? Anything else that you feel you've missed or need to come back to? You seem to have a good oversight.
Yeah, sorry, David. I just posted the link, the support assessment link mentioned by Molly in the chat. So have a look at that. Good starting point. Slido, we had another vote on a question more about how you'd be spending those 20 days. There's a question here about which of the 20 days would be spent on webinars, working with a digital partner, and or working internally on the project. So a bit of an idea of how that time investment would be spent, Debbie.
Yeah, so we're not completely sure, and it might differ because we're running about 6 cohorts, or we're all funding 6 cohorts. So it depends on the digital agencies that deliver, but I think it's safe to expect that 1 to 2 days a week we'll be working with the digital agency, either as a group or maybe some one-to-one work, and the rest you'll do internally, because a lot of this work the organization applying and leading on this for the network will be driving the work, so they will have to bring hence the time for it and the resources, hence the 5K funding. Something else came to mind. Somebody asked about matching, how we put the organizations together in cohorts. So there's a question, we'll try to look at what communities are you supporting, and what is your and see if we can match that up. We'll also be looking at digital maturity. So that's a question in the application form. If you're just, because there's 5 different indicators in there, and we'll try to match those that are similar starting point in their digital maturity, so you can learn together and benefit that learning the most, we feel. So we'll look at that as well. I think, is there any last questions, Molly and David, that we can answer, or do you feel we're there? Because I think then we have back.
Yeah, we're gonna come back. I think we have time for, if there's one more, we have time for one more maybe, but otherwise I'm gonna move us back on to the next steps. Are we all good, David? Cool. This is great teamwork. I'm relying on you two to be my eyes across Slido. So if you do have any other questions, or if something we've said here today has, triggered another question in your mind, you can contact us at support@wearecast.org.uk. And we'll also be updating the FAQs. So I think I have here, I have at the end the link to the FAQs, but there's FAQs on the website as well. And I'll be making notes from today's call and putting those notes into the FAQs. So the next step really is to apply for Discovery. Do check your eligibility. It's called a support assessment, as I've now remembered. So thank you, David, for sharing that. David sent the link to that in the chat. Review the application templates. These are now up on the website, so you might not have seen them. We put them up last week. And apply. The deadline is the 7th of September, so you need to apply before then. If you've been listening to this and you've just been thinking, do you know what, I've done Discovery, I know my user needs, I've done this user research, I have a well-defined problem, I know what I want to do, then perhaps the next step for your organization is actually to apply for development. So as I just said, if you're already familiar with developing digital products and services, then you can apply direct for the development grant. So organisations who complete Discovery will have the opportunity to apply for a second round of development funding, which will be announced in October as well. So if you feel like you need to do the Discovery learning journey first, then please apply for Discovery, and there'll be a second round. If you are looking to apply for development directly, then we have a Q&A session for that. That session is fully booked at the moment, so we will post the recordings online after the event. That's happening on Wednesday. And as I've just mentioned, all sessions will be recorded and shared. So even this session, you'll be able to access this session afterwards and share the link to any colleagues you have who might be helping you with the application process. You can also share the link to any organisations in your network if they're curious about what the journey will be. And that's the website, and you can contact us at support@wearecast. And I think that's everything. Debbie and David, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that is everything. We've got what, 5 to 8 minutes left. So I don't know if anybody has any questions now they want to add to Slido. We can do a few more and make the most of the time.
Or feel free to just turn your camera on and wave a hand as well. We should be able to see you. But if not, then I'm going. Oh, I have a wave. Fantastic.
Sorry, this is just a very quick one, and it's following on from my previous questions about infrastructure organisations applying on behalf of its members. Do I get the sense that an infrastructure could apply and put together a cohort of its members that have got various problems into one cohort? Would that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know how big you are as a member organisation, but if there is a challenge that you know your members are, or at least 10 of your members are dealing with, then you could apply on funding on the like for the 10 of them, or for the 10 of you. Yeah.
We have about 1,000 members nationally, and we've got, it's a little bit premature, unfortunately, we've got a member survey which goes out a lot of different years. This year we've included a digital section in that survey, so we're going to be able to identify a little bit, might be early doors analysis for the 7th of September, but we'll have a pretty good idea. Some of those reflect the charity digital survey questions, so I think we'll probably be able to identify out of that survey some of our members that have got perhaps some common digital early stage thinking perhaps into a single cohort, and then we can share that across the rest of the network. Is what's going on in my head at the moment, if that's sort of eligible and allowed.
Yeah, you can definitely apply if that's the case.
Okay, good, thank you.
just add, I quite like that approach as well, about looking at, there will be organisations in this Zoom room and also others who are looking at applying who have much larger networks than 10. And if that's the case, you might want to think about where you might have 10 organisations that are representative of different sectors of your networks and different needs, and then you're working with them closely and able to work with them in a more meaningful way, but then allow them to have almost a ripple effect and spread out to their wider networks too. So that sounds great.
Yeah.
I can see another face. Does that mean we have another question from someone here? For some reason, I can't see people's names on this Zoom. So I don't know, David, if you can. I think it's because I'm showing my screen.
Yeah, we've got, we can see Mike and Duncan on video. I don't know if Mike or Duncan, you have a question or reflection you'd like to add, and same goes for everyone else. We've got 5 minutes left. So last chance to raise any questions or share any reflections based on what you've heard.
Okay, it's Mike here. I'll just quickly, have you had any thoughts in terms of how you're going to form the cohorts? Because that's different to the networks, isn't it? So how will the cohorts be brought together?
Yes, I think Debbie mentioned it a bit earlier on. So there's some questions when you're applying about your digital maturity, and there's also questions about types of users that you're working with. So it will be a combination of looking at forming cohorts based on your digital maturity, and also organisations who are looking to use their learning in a similar area. And then matching that with digital partners. I think, again, as Debbie mentioned, we're hoping to encourage a wide range of digital agencies to work with us on this programme. So that the cohorts will just help us to match to agencies or organisations that are experienced in working with a particular type of organisation. So we hope that will help tailor the programme much more relevant to your needs. I don't know, Debbie, if you had any other thoughts on that.
No, that was exactly right. That was what I was going to say.
Thanks.
We've got away from Duncan as well.
Yeah, hello there. That's been really helpful so far. Thank you. One of the things I wanted to clarify was the network, and there's a lot of emphasis on the applicant being user-led. Is the anticipation that the networks would need to be user-led as well, or could we be more flexible with the sorts of agencies? You know, if there was a clear demonstrable need and sort of shared problem, would the fact that the user network was not necessarily 100% sort of user-led be a problem?
Molly, you want to go for it, or shall I?
No, you go for it. You go for it, Debbie.
No, that's absolutely fine, Duncan. Sorry, I'm mixing everybody up now. No, yeah, we only ask for the organisation who applies to have that, and if you can make it to have user representation within the organisation, great if the rest of your network has. But I think we do recognise there's still some way to go for charities to embrace that. So not everybody is that far on that journey. But so as a minimum, we ask that the organisation that who applies has that representation.
I would also just add to that if you have a challenge that you think is a shared or common challenge across your network, and maybe you recognise that you might not be the strongest organisation to apply, there's nothing to stop another organisation within your network from applying. So if you work very closely with an organisation that is more user-led or is more led by, I can't remember what the other priority area was thinking about, underrepresented groups, then it may be that you encourage them to apply as well, and you form part of their network and they can share their learning with you in that way.
And we're almost at time, but I just noticed a really interesting question from Karen that I think it's worth answering. Can we apply, if we have applied to National Lottery COVID-19 for digital support? So what we have to be very clear on is that we can't duplicate funding that has already been given towards the challenge. So any emergency COVID funding that you've already received, you can't apply for a second funding for that same challenge with us. Unfortunately, the lottery has restricted us on that. So if you have a different challenge that you're also working on and you'd like funding for, you can apply, but the funding application can't duplicate something you already received funding for, unfortunately. Okay, I think we're at time, Molly.
Fantastic. Well, then I think the only thing left to say is thank you all for joining. It's been really valuable to have your contributions, and I think, as Debbie said earlier, there's all these questions that I'm sure represent questions that other charities who aren't in the room today will also have. So this has been incredibly helpful, and I think that's it. So good luck with your applications. Any other questions at all, please do email us. Do check the FAQs. We'll be updating the FAQs later this week at the same time that we post this recording online.